Welcome to Pandora's Box. This is the podcast where we talk about our favorite fandoms in terms of our thoughts, theories, opinions. We like to do a little story dissection as well as production analysis. My name is Tyler Gardner, and I'm joined as always by my friend and co-host Christian Almonte.
A pleasure as always.
And Christian has spent the last episode bringing us through the start of the Star Trek timeline, as well as a little bit going into the events of the entire Star Trek universe. And Christian's going to continue that. So Christian, kind of help me out. help the rest of us out. Where did we leave off? Where are we going?
Yeah, it was very generous for you to say I'm leading you, and I'm kind of just bumbling into the timeline at this point. But, in our last podcast, we kind of touched upon where Earth was prior to space travel, which was a fucking mess. You had world wars, eugenics wars, gene wars, narcotics wars, it was the worst. Nuclear wars, 600,000 species decimated, 30% of the population on Earth gone. And from there arose a single hope, which was Zephyr Cochrane, who was honestly just a drunk guy trying to make some money, but he ended up inventing warp travel, a warp drive, that is, warp-capable vessel, which attracted the Vulcans, a friendly alien race, if a little bit emotionless and kind of awkward. But they helped us humans come out of this dark age of world wars into a global nation, and later down the line invent the United Federation of Planets after the Warp 5 vessel was invented for Star Trek Enterprise.
And we're leaping off and starting with the formation of the United Federation of Planets, is that correct?
That is true.
All right. Well, whenever you're ready, Christian. I am now reprimed.
Rick Primes. So, essentially, the United Federation of Planets is it started off small. The idea was just kind of to be like a nice big Federation alliance, essentially.
Do we know what planets?
Yeah. So, let's see. The Federation consisted of, at the beginning, obviously the Vulcans, the humans, I think the Andorians, who are basically these blue guys with kind of like these goofy little Martian tentacles. They seem cute, but they're actually they are so easily angered. They're like the most. They all have anger management problems. It's actually really bad. Let's see.
Don't cut them off in traffic.
Yeah, not exactly. They are essentially the alien representation.
So how did they come to be, I suppose, a friendly species that's going to be brought into this federation? Well, it just seems a very odd pick.
It's a good point that you mentioned that. Star Trek Enterprise, some of their episodes actually do go into the first encounters with Andorians, which did not go well in the slightest.
Can't imagine it would.
No, but they ended up initiating a friendship. It took some time, but they managed to get it. That's a whole arc essentially, because when they first met us, they were like, no, we're not doing this.
This ain't happening. We're not doing this. I don't think so, dude.
Yeah. So after that, they basically, we just kind of befriended the neighbors. Those were kind of like the three major ones.
Okay.
If you will.
Are Andorians from the planet Andor? Or is it a different name? Is it Andorra?
Ooh, that's a good question, my friend. Let's see.
Or they have some really weird fucking name. Like, we're from Earth, but we're called humans.
Andoria. Yeah, we're not quite Star Wars yet.
I did say Andoria, so I'm pretty proud of myself.
Yeah. But they're in the Alpha Quadrant, yeah. Eventually...
So at the start of the Federation, it was Earth, Andoria, and Vulcan?
Yeah, I think there were other, I could be wrong, but I think there were other, smaller neighboring races that don't really matter.
Okay.
I could be wrong about that. People can correct me. That's totally fine. But yeah, it was those three that kind of started, because basically they're all in the Alpha Quadrant. They're kind of very in close proximity to each other. So they were cool with each other. So there is turmoil on Vulcan in 2154, Vulcan Reformation. So they prompted basically a new willingness for Vulcan's part to engage in a closer collaboration with the other species, like the Andorians and the humans. Basically being like, yo, we should chill with these guys. But there was a terrorist attack on the United Earth Embassy on Vulcan, and there was a group of Vulcans who believed that their race had lost the interpretation of Sirach's teaching, one of their kind of co-founders. These guys were initially blamed. However, it was not Vulcan terrorists. Well, it was Vulcan terrorists, but it wasn't like a core group of Vulcan terrorists. They were actually prompted by Romulan interference. Now, Romulans are actually an offshoot of Vulcans. So Romulans are essentially like kind of a similar breed as Vulcans, but they've embraced their emotions. They're extremely tricky, extremely intelligent. They're like very deceitful. They're like snakes. They don't play by the rules. And when they do, like they'd rather kill their own ship than admit that something was their idea. So if like say like someone found this, then this actually happened. Someone found out that there was Romulans infiltrated Federation space and like we're doing terrorist attacks or whatever. Like the Romulans would rather kill that ship than admit that ship was ours. They're tough cookies, man. And they also have a very good fleet and they have cloaking device.
Okay.
Yeah. The big thing though is that when they're cloaked, and Klingons also have developed this. When they're cloaked, they can't attack. So that's the only advantage of them being cloaked is that they can't use guns at the same time.
Disadvantage?
Disadvantage. Yeah. Well, the only advantage for us as humans.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. That being said, the Romulans essentially start beefing with us, and then there's an Earth-Romulan war in 2156.
So that happens. What year did you say? 2160?
2156.
2156. So right after the events of the Star Trek Enterprise series, we have a Romulan-human war.
Yes. And this is extremely important because after the final battle in 2160, there's the establishment of the Romulan neutral zone, which is super important because it literally comes into play almost every single series and almost every big event happens in the neutral zone. Basically, it's just this gray area between Romulan space and Federation space.
Now, is it neutral because both parties can cross that area without getting into conflict? And then if you go further past, it's like, okay, now you're breaching territory kind of thing?
Yeah, kind of. You really don't want to go into the neutral zone. They could kill you in the neutral zone and no one would care, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So the neutrals, that's why it's really, because plus the Romulans are always looking to beef at any point. So like you'll like fart in their direction and be like, is that an act of war? We're going to war. Like,
what'd you say? You say you're gonna kill me?
So yeah, the Romulans are always wanting to start shit.
Where's here to go? Okay.
Yeah. Actually, why don't I take this opportunity to talk about, since it's been established the United Federation's appliance exists, we have our own uniforms now.
So we have warp drive created.
Yes, sir.
We have first contact by the Vulcans. Vulcan help us kind of beef up in terms of warp tech.
Yep.
We have Star Trek Enterprise series. Directly after that, we get to a scuffle with the Romulans.
After the United Federation's appliance is assembled. While we're doing that, since we've established the Federation, let's go into learning a little bit about the uniforms.
Okay, so we have the Federation created, which leads. You're saying the Federation is like these uniforms came with?
Yep.
Okay.
They all have variations depending on the years, because sometimes certain series will have their own variation of the uniform. But for the most part, they all stay this kind of regimented area.
Yeah, you're just saying variations of the design, but the colors still stay the same.
Yeah, my dad actually was super into the different uniforms and designs. Like he really liked like the OG ones because they had the cool like jackets.
Maybe we can
and
bring
shit.
him one day for.
Dude, that would be interesting. For the most part, you have the science officers and the medical officers all wear a blue tinted shirt, and this goes for the chief medical officer. This goes for the chief science officer.
So you have like the medical officers, which I'm assuming are obviously anything to do with like the health and the medical side of things. So science, are they just like research whenever they're out exploring in?
Yeah, because most of the Enterprise are like exploratory vessels. So when it comes to like anomaly or just charting different planets, analyzing stuff, they keep a division of the eggheads on board at all time.
Okay.
Operations is a little bit different. Operations are kind of cool. I really like the yellow guys. So they are the engineers. They're like the mechanics. They also are security. So
they're running the ship.
Yeah, they're running the ship. They're protecting the ship with security. So like when you see Lieutenant Commander Data or LeVar Burton, aka Geordi LaForge, those are those guys.
Okay.
So the red, it says command on here, but that's not necessarily true.
Yeah, I was gonna ask.
Yeah. So command does wear red, but also anybody that's on the command pathway will do red. So like cadets will wear red, ensigns wear red. It all depends on the beads, which you'll see on a different picture.
So what else is so red is kind of like anybody else that's not quite designated to either operating, maintaining a ship, and or being a part of science or medical.
Yep. But the red, they're differentiated by the
ranking,
like the ranking insignias. Yeah.
Okay. Which makes sense.
What
So you
else?
wanted me to go to that ranking picture. I see. That's a big.
It's like one of the what's that little Pixar movie? Next slide, please. All right.
You want this? You want this one, right?
Yes, sir. So this is I'm most familiar with Next Generation era. They all have different ones, but Next Generation era is this one because I grew up with Next Gen. So you got Ensign, and it goes all the way up to Fleet Admiral. Captains wear those 4 stars, commanders, lieutenant commanders, so on and so forth. It's not really important that you know this too in-depthly, just to know that there's a big Navy-style ranking system that goes from like all the way from your first year up to Fleet Admiral.
Mm-hmm.
It plays a part a lot of the times because sometimes you'll be like, why does that guy outrank that guy? It's because of this.
Well, yeah, you can tell because you see. The cadets are just dashes, so it's like -1 to up to a 4, which makes sense. And then ensigns are just a solid circle, and then it seems like as you rank up, instead of going from ensign to lieutenant, if you're lieutenant junior, you have the solid circle, but then you also have a kind of open circle, and then you have 2 solid circles for lieutenant, and the lieutenant commander has 2 solid circles, and then like the little half circle, then commander has 3 solid circles, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
And then anybody past captain starts to get a square above their circles.
Right.
Makes sense.
And so, from a production standpoint as well, that I kind of forgot to mention, but it is kind of important. So you know how I mentioned at the very beginning that Star Trek started off as like TV serials, like one episode, you didn't have to pay attention to the other episode.
Mm-hmm.
Star Trek: The Next Generation, which would come, it's literally the series that follows after.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of introduced the whole like old episodes inform newer episodes, so it became.
So now it's it's a series.
It became more of a series, so things started to matter in the previous episodes. So that being said, that same kind of mentality went with Star Trek Enterprise because it was received later.
Mm-hmm.
That shit mattered, and when it comes to Voyager, Next Generation, because they're like that, sometimes they'll level up and you'll see the ceremony where they give them the pins and stuff.
Okay.
So ranks, like I said, don't matter too much, but in terms of the flavor, in terms of like the operations, it's kind of cool to know.
Well, it helps, especially when you're seeing everybody wearing the same color fucking shirt.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. If we go back to the timeline.
Absolutely.
Now that the Federation's been created.
Mm-hmm. What happens right after the Federation's created? Anything?
Not much happens. They're just exploring for a long time. Jonathan Archer did his thing. The New World economy took place in the late 22nd century, which basically meant that there's no need for money. Like material needs and money kind of became obsolete because, the driving force of humanity was, the need to improve oneself, challenge oneself, and like explore the galaxy. We kind of became very focused on that,
Oh, so we got over ourselves and
yeah, we're like, fuck this shit. Let's fucking check some shit out. That kind of situation.
It's kind of cool how you see like a massive progressing of human civilization. Like one still step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Yeah.
And now we're back on track to like progressing again versus just war after war after war and like a complete devolution of everything.
Yeah, we went from rock bottom to exploring the stars.
We saved ourselves.
It was all. Star Trek was always kind of about the whole unity prospect. So it's kind of cool that they ended up doing it.
Okay, so what happens next?
Let's see. So then we hit the 23rd century, which actually before we hit the 23rd century. That's where Discovery about hits. Star Trek Discovery. That's a tough cookie to handle.
Why is that?
Because that is one of the most recent, the second most recent. Oh no, Picard. It's one of the most recent series. It fucks with a lot because it's also very time oriented. So they just screw around with time.
Oh, so it technically takes place at this stage of the timeline, but things get messed up because they're messing with time travel.
Yeah. So Star Trek Discovery is odd because it basically involves. So Lieutenant Commander Spock in Star Trek Discovery, we find out that he has a sister, an adopted sister.
Vulcan or human?
Human, an adopted human sister.
Okay.
And their whole adventure. So essentially, I'm just going to talk about Discovery for a very brief moment, just because it's still an ongoing series.
Okay.
And also, it's not good for you as a fledgling Trekkie to understand the butt fuckery that is just that series.
Yeah, I'm hyper redshirt.
But yeah, you are.
I'm gonna die.
So essentially, Michael Burnham, that was the name for her. Michael Burnham is the adopted sister of Spock, from what I understand. They go on adventures and whatnot. This is also where things cut off to the newest series, which is Strange New Worlds Amazing series, which involves
Wait,
Captain Pike.
they're making two different Star Trek series at the same time?
Yeah, they're trying to be like Star Wars, trying to make as many as they can. Yeah. Right now, Discovery, Picard, and Strange New Worlds, as well as a cartoon Lower Decks for Nickelodeon, I think.
These are all going on right now?
They're all going on right now.
Yikes.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
That is a lot. But it's the same thing with Star Wars. Star Wars has Mandalorian, all those other ones. But, as I digress, basically an event happens in which Michael Burnham, she prevents a Klingon war against humanity, which is ironic because later on will be another Federation Klingon war, as you can see right after. And she gets launched hundreds of years into the future. So much so that I don't think she's even on this timeline. While she's gone, Pike and Spock take over in Strange New Worlds as a new series, essentially. Okay. Now, once again, that's really not important, but I felt like putting it in there just because it's on the timeline.
Okay.
And for you to understand. So basically, shit happens. She gets launched into space. We don't see her. It's fine.
So we have the United Federation of Planets. It's founded about 100 years goes past. Then we have the start of Discovery, which involves Spock's adopted sister. And then a little bit happens. She gets launched into space, and now we're at the Klingon War.
Yes, we're at the Federation Klingon War. This is where a lot of actually, if you want to go to the movies,
it's up to you. I was just looking at the timeline, seeing what goes after.
Yeah, the movies are on the timeline though.
Oh, they're not.
They are.
They are.
Yeah, if you want to just show it, just so I
can show you. They are the timeline.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. So I'm clear me now.
There you go.
Zoom.
This is where some of the more important things happen. So you can see that the original series takes place right there.
There's the Enterprise.
Yep.
And then 100 years later.
So right now we're basically at the original series.
Okay, so we had Star Trek Enterprise ends, and then 100 years later we have the original series.
Yep. But this takes place I don't remember which version of the Enterprise, but it's the next outfitted version of the Enterprise. It's commanded by Captain Kirk. Spock's his right-hand man. Then Bones, who's an amazing actor, amazing dude. He's the medical officer. He's like where the "damn it Jim" meme comes in because he's just like the grumpy doctor. He's just awesome. But he's a cool dude. And then you got the animated series that takes place right after, but no one really cares about the animated series because trust me, those old school animations were not the best.
Not where was that.
So here's what's interesting. Around this time in the real world, Tyler, we've hit 1979. Can you tell me a little bit about the 1970s in terms of sci-fi?
Oh, you had Star Wars.
Yes, precisely.
That was really it.
But I ask you this. Do you remember in the Empire of Dreams when a lot of the old industry heads were retiring and they were selling their corporations off to people that didn't really know too much? They just knew that if marketing told us to do one thing, we'll do it. If marketing said to make a movie, we'll make a movie. So, Leonard Nimoy was sitting on his couch at home, saw that Star Wars had come out, and was just like, oh shit, we're gonna get called in like 2 seconds. And lo and behold, they're like, 20th Century Fox just made a sci-fi movie about Star Wars. We need to make a Star Trek movie. So, in comes Star Trek the Motion Picture, number one in 1979. And it involved the cast of the original Star Trek. This was a little bit later, so they're a bit older now. And it did pretty well. The first one was kind of crappy. I mean, it's okay. Not the best. Star Trek fans will agree which ones are the best and which ones are the worst. Mm-hmm. Star Trek 1 was not the best.
Why not? Just in terms of...
just the story was kind of lame, and it stretched on and on. And it was not a bad movie. It's just like one of those, nothing special. Mm. They made it just to make it kind of thing.
It seemed like they made it just to kind of compete with
Star Wars, just to put something out there.
Which is like, I don't think ever...
Something from Paramount version.
I don't think it's ever a good ground or basis to do anything.
Well, that's the thing. It's just two companies that don't really know what they're doing, trying to be like, oh, they're making something, we'll make something, that kind of thing. All that changes with the amazing second one, The Wrath of Khan. So, basically, this takes place shortly after, in 2285. So, for context, in the original, Star Trek, the original series, they bump into Ricardo Montalban, the original Khan. Dude's awesome, but he's also an augment, kind of evil. So they end up banishing him to a desert planet, pretty much with no hopes of survival, and they leave him there. He's not dead, they just leave him there.
Mhm.
All these years later, he's been scheming. The boy has other augments by his side, and the Wrath of Khan, basically Khan comes back in the picture and almost kills everybody because the dude's just a G, and he's one of the best actors on the planet. So this guy was just like a menace.
So this character had so many things going for him.
Yeah. And so basically he was trying to take the plans for a new device called the Genesis device.
Okay.
So basically these scientists decided we're going to use this kind of, it's like a missile, but it's not a weaponized missile. What it is you launch it to like a moon or an unoccupied planet, and it will completely renovate the planet and make it sustainable for life.
Oh, it'll terraform it.
Okay. Yeah, it'll terraform the whole planet, essentially, which sounds good on paper.
Mhm.
But what if you used it on a planet that already has life? You demolish the whole ass planet, and it becomes, fresh. So what do you think Khan wanted?
To do that.
Yeah, he's like, dude, I'm gonna take this fucking weapon
Shoot
and I'll
at you.
beat your
I will
ass,
shoot it
and
at
we're gonna
you.
live on the planet that has been creamed, essentially. He does not succeed, fortunately for us. Kirk is able to stop him, but very barely. Like it was one of the craziest fights. This is very important. I know you don't have any emotional attachment to him, but back in the day, this was a huge thing.
Okay.
Spock, unfortunately, passes away at the end of this movie.
Oh shit.
Yeah, he dies. Spoiler, of course.
Damn.
I know you don't care about spoilers, but I figured I'd say that. And
I think anybody at this point, they need to know where we're at with anything. So.
Yeah. So he passes away. They launch his body onto a terraforming Genesis planet.
They just shoot Spock onto a planet that's being terraformed.
Yeah. Well, they do that. It's basically like a casket send off into space.
Oh.
Yeah. But
Spock's gone.
Yeah, he's gone. But then if you scroll a little bit down,
The Search for Spock.
the next movie, The Search for Spock.
But he's already dead.
He's already dead. But what does Genesis do?
Oh, did it bring him back to life?
Yes, it brings him back, but only from like a birth perspective. So he's like a younger Spock.
Oh, that's weird.
But Genesis is strange because it's not a perfected science.
Mm-hmm.
So things are like evolving way too fast on that planet.
Okay.
So he's growing up like way too fast. So he'll be like a baby for like 2 seconds, then a teenager for like 2 seconds. Like, you know what I mean? It's pretty creepy. But Search for Spock is kind of whatever. It's a decent movie. The Klingons get word of the Genesis stuff, and they're a warfaring race. All they care about is war. So like, yo, war. Yeah, exactly. Like war.
So you have Search for Spock, and then right after the voyage home. Is that after they find Spock and they're bringing him home?
Yeah, I can't remember which one. I think between 4 and 5, I forget which one's really good and which one's really shitty. But there's a few more movies after that just kind of involve adventures, and then that ends. And then shortly after, Star Trek: The Next Generation, which is where I was born and raised in terms of Star Trek, comes into play. Okay.
So all this happens, not the original Enterprise, but the most known Enterprise with Captain Kirk and Spock. That all happens, that all goes down. And now we have The Next Generation, which looks like it's about 100 years later from the start of Kirk's series.
Yes.
Okay. What's going on there?
And it's also the second ever Star Trek television show.
Okay.
Because at the time, despite all the crap that happened that we talked about for like the last session and a half, only Star Trek existed prior. The original series. Only Star Trek, the original series, was there. It was just that in the movies. So Star Trek: The Next Generation happens, and dude, the fans are pissed.
Why?
They're mad that it's not Spock, that it's not the original people. Look, man, this might be a roast to the Star Trek community, but they can be kind of douchey sometimes.
They're way too...
Yeah, they're way too passionate, and they're
way too conservative.
Not the nicest. Yeah,
it sounds like they're very conservative.
Yeah. Not saying all Star Trek fans are. Like I like to consider myself chill, but that being said, so for the first 3 seasons, like they were getting them really shitty reviews, like for the first 2 seasons, and like people were like, oh man, this isn't gonna last very long. So yeah, Next Generation starts up. It's not the most well received in the world, but by season 3 they started loving it. The way that Jonathan Frakes says it, I think he says, we went from a bunch of like 10 angry fans to like hundreds of happy fans, so it was very nice. The Next Generation crew is goated. I have like Jonathan Frakes autograph. I have Michael Dorn's autograph.
Why are they
Brett
so
Spiner's
awesome?
autograph. Gates McFadden's autograph.
Why are they so awesome?
The Next Generation series was just amazing. It was awesome. I used to listen to it all the time. I listened to it sometimes in the car when I was delivery driving, like just to have it in the background.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's how cool it was to me. It was also the one that introduced the Borg, which is obviously my favorite enemy of all time.
I think you mentioned that.
Yeah, they did a lot of delving into other cultures. They had a Klingon on board, so you got to learn a lot about the Klingon kind of lineage, the ancestry over there.
How did that come
Just
about?
great
How
too.
did a Klingon end up getting to become part of the United Federation of Planets like that?
So it's interesting because the Klingon War, there was a Klingon War that happened around the end of the Star Trek movie franchise.
Okay.
And I think it pretty much ended by the 6th movie. So afterwards, there was a little bit of a gap where they were just trying to figure out what to do with themselves because, I mean, there was still a lot of hatred on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
Worf, I think, his father was killed at the Khitomer Massacre. I don't remember where the Khitomer Massacre was.
His name is Worf?
Worf, yeah.
That's the guy, okay.
Yeah, Worf's the Klingon. And his dad was killed in battle, and he was raised by Russian parents on Earth, for the most part.
Okay.
Which was interesting, because he's not like Spock, because, Spock's kind of half and half.
Mm-hmm.
Worf was full Klingon, but he was raised by humans, for the most part.
So he's adopted by a human couple or whatever.
And he wanted to be in Starfleet, so...
How did that, I'm just like, how does those series of events happen? That's crazy. Like, he just, like, walked in and, like, went to...
I wish I could tell you, buddy. That's a little bit...
They don't go into it, or they do?
They probably do. I just never thought too hard about it, at least not in recent times. But that would be, I mean, if you watch the series, you probably gather a few things here and there, or look into it. Yeah, that's when he was introduced. That's when Data was introduced, the android that wanted to basically he was like Pinocchio, he wanted to get human feelings.
Oh, real boy.
Yeah, he wanted to get human feelings, and he wanted to, experience life as a human. Humans saved him, so he joined the Federation.
And he's a robot, right?
He's an android, yes, sir.
Android, yeah.
Artificial intelligence, extremely advanced too.
Who made him? Humans?
Dr. Noonanson, which is interesting because now that I think about it, I think the Soons were originally the names of the last names of augments. So I wonder if he was descended from geneticists or something. It'd be interesting to find out. I don't know.
We can do separate things on these separate characters.
Yeah.
It seems like there's a lot behind
there's a lot to unpack in the Next Generation. I could go on for freaking hours in the Next Generation because you had them, and then you had Deanna, Counselor Deanna Troi, who is half Beta Z, which Beta Zoids are telepathic.
Okay.
So that's
So
interesting.
she's half telepathic. She can talk to people.
She's an empath, so she's very good with negotiations because she can understand when someone's like lying or, that kind of thing. Although it's usually because they basically gave her such an OP power at the beginning that they had to nerf her so hard in the later seasons. So like whenever like there was like an entity, she'd be like, oh, I don't know, I can't
read
it.
I can't read. Its mind is too different.
Oh my god, there's a funny ass video on YouTube of all the times that she couldn't figure out what was happening, and it's just like, I don't know, I can't sense anything, that kind of thing.
So it's like they give her this power, but then like she just can't use it.
Yeah,
that's so dumb.
Well, yeah, it's kind of fair in the sense that like
it would make
she would have been way too overpowered,
It would have made everything really easy.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, Next Generation went on for 7 seasons, which is twice as much as the previous Star Trek. Let's see, what else did they do in Star Trek: The Next Generation that's important? Oh my God, they introduced Q. Q. I wish I gave you a picture, but
I can look it up.
Yeah, Q.
We have the technology.
We have the technology. Q played by the wonderful John Delancey, who's awesome. No, Q as in the letter Q.
Oh.
See, that's how you know you're new to Star Trek. Good old John Delancey.
Who is Q?
Q is an entity.
Spectre character as well as the name of a race.
So Q is essentially like a godlike creature from the Q continuum that is basically just fucks with aliens just because he can. Like he's like a god that just plays with things just because he can.
So he just fucks around.
Yeah. He actually started out as more of a douche character, like a trickster, an annoyance. He basically at the very beginning of the series, he puts humanity on trial for their past crimes. He considers them a savage race. And that's where he brings up the history. That's where that picture comes from of the narcotics soldier. Like he brings that in. He's like, yeah, not even like what 200 years ago you were snorting cocaine out of a military thing. So
I'm not against this guy so far.
Yeah, he's. I grew to like Q. At the beginning, he was very douchey, but he ended up being really cool.
So was he an actual protagonist when he was first introduced, or was he?
No, he was an antagonist when he was first introduced.
Okay, well that's what I meant. Yeah, antagonist.
Yeah. So then Picard, the wonderful Sir Patrick Stewart, who's in everything, we all love him. Mm-hmm. Did you know that he's the Emperor in Oblivion?
In what?
Elder Scrolls Oblivion.
I did not know that.
He's the Emperor. Yeah. I was like, is that freaking Sir Patrick Stewart in this game? That being said,
dude just fucks around.
Yeah, they're just amazing cast. Q ends up doing a lot of major things that affect the timeline in the series. So he's the one that introduces them to the Borg.
Why would he do that? Did he do that for a reason?
He did that literally just out of spite. So
wow.
Let me tell you the story. So Q-Who, one of the best.
Q-Who, baby.
Q-Who, which is one of the best Star Trek episodes to even exist. We'll have to watch it sometime. It's one of the best episodes just in general. It basically starts out with Q comes to them because he's usually on some fuckery. He'll change a few things. So he literally snaps his fingers, basically captures Picard and brings him into a shuttlecraft. And he's just like, "Yo, I need you to give my request a full hearing." And then Picard is just like, he's so done with Q at this point. He's like, "Dude, you promised that you wouldn't ever step foot on this ship again." He's like, "We're not on your ship. Like, I have your shuttlecraft in space right now." And he's like, capturing me is not going to make me talk to you. And he's like, "Well, you're going to want to talk eventually. We only have time." And he's like, "Whatever, man. Freaking Riker, my commander, will take over in my position." He's like, "Dude, you're the most stubborn human on the planet." So they're freaking out on the ship because they lost their captain. They're like, "Where the fuck is the captain at?" He ends up spawning back into 10 Forward, which is basically the lounge, to give him a full hearing. And this is also where Whoopi Goldberg randomly comes into play. She plays Guinan, by the way.
Oh, okay. I think I saw her in the purple, the turban and stuff.
Because Whoopi Goldberg's kind of an anomaly, because at the time she was already a multi-award-winning actress, and she only wanted to be part of the show because of Uhura in the original TOS, because there was the African-American woman actress. So she's like, "Yeah, dude, I grew up watching." Yeah, she's like, "I grew up watching Uhura. I'm gonna pop in for this." Basically, Guinan and Picard and Q are in the room, and eventually joined by Riker and Worf.
And who is Guinan?
Guinan is essentially the bartender, but she has a way more intricate story.
The bartender?
Yeah, but she has way more important.
Like she's they go to a bar to have a talk, and she's just serving them fucking drinks.
No, she's not serving them drinks at this time.
Oh,
but okay. She's got beef with Q already.
Oh, okay.
So Q says, "Dude, what's up, my guys? I have just been kicked out of the Q continuum. So I was wondering if I can chill with you guys. Maybe even reduce my powers to be as dumb as all you guys are." And Picard's just like, "No." Why would I ever do that? And he's just like, "Why? Like you could use my power. You could use my powers. We could be bros." And
was he being sincere?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Picard's like, "No, we don't trust you." He's like, "You don't trust me, but you need me. You're not prepared for what's out here, man."
Okay.
And Picard's like, "No, we're more than prepared for what's out here. We literally are on an exploratory vessel. Our mission is to find what's out there." He's like, "Dude, you're arrogant. You don't know what's out there." And Picard's like, "Dude, but we're ready to encounter it." And so they basically go to heads on this. And Q, eventually, once he's rejected fully, Q's just like, "All right, well, let's see how ready you are, man." And he snaps his fingers, sends the ship all the way over to the Delta Quadrant, or at least on the border of it. And that's when they find the Q cube, or the Borg cube, if you want to bring up a Borg cube real quick.
Okay, so they get into a talk with Q.
Yeah. And this is after 2 times of Q already messing with them. Freaking massive.
Is this the actual scene from the show?
It's one of them, I think.
When he first sends them to a cube, they get sucked in.
Not sucked in, but Q dips at this point. He's like, "All right, you're here now. Fucking handle it then."
You said you could.
You said you could handle it.
So you didn't need me.
so you're good.
So go ahead. Go off
So,
not needing me.
So basically he dips. Guinan basically looks out the window. She's like, oh, yeah, we're kind of fucked. And like Picard, though, he has no idea what this alien species is. So he's like, dude, I'll totally fucking investigate this shit. So
we don't need Q.
Yeah, they like analyze it. The Borg cube is weird because it's like it has no identifiable bridge, no like exhaust. It doesn't seem to match any other design. It's just a perfect cube. And so they're like, well, I guess we'll say hi. Then they didn't really get a response. Suddenly, while they're at the cube, engineering randomly gets a Borg teleported in out of nowhere, and literally it just starts staring at the computers and touching everything. And like LeVar Burton, or sorry, not keep calling them by their actors' names. Geordie LaForge, who's the engineering chief, he just goes like this. He's like, we got an intruder down here. You don't want to handle this. so they all come down to the main engineering, and they all like staring at this dude. And Picard's like, "Yo, we mean you no harm, man." And the Borg's like, not even paying attention to him. And Q literally spawns, and he's just like, "Dude, you're nothing to him. Like he's just here to analyze your technology. He might even try to gain control of the ship. I wouldn't let him do that." Then like right as he says that, like he starts like doing electricity shit and
trying
like,
to get control of
shit. Yeah, and everything's like fading out. Like Picard's like, Worf, handle this. And then Worf, who's security Klingon, he's like, yo, extra, handle this. Then the extra runs up and like he gets launched across the room.
Oh, dies.
Yeah, as extra just do. Long story short,
our first red shirt of the day.
Yeah, long story short, they beam aboard the Borg cube to figure out more about it. They realize that how wild the Borg are. They're literally like these humanoid creatures, not quite he, not quite she. They've been like reprogrammed with these crazy like wires and Borg implants. You can actually probably look up a Borg.
I was about to.
Yeah, and they're like all in stasis.
That's what they look like.
Probably can get a better angle.
There's Picard as a Borg.
Yeah, that happens. Don't worry about it.
I'm a little worried about it. They all look fucked.
Yeah, they're all pretty fucked.
They're scary.
Yeah, they're really scary. But yeah, you can pick any of them.
I'm assuming this lady that keeps showing up, she the Borg queen.
Yes, very good. Very knowledgeable, my good sir. His reasons of deduction are impressive.
Well, you mentioned them quite a bit.
This is true. But yeah, so they jump on the Borg ship. They realize that the Borg, it looks like they're all just like chilling and sleeping, right? No.
They're just charging.
They're using their combined powers to literally regenerate the ship. So literally, like, if you look on the outside, like wires are literally just snapping into place.
Oh, their ship?
Yeah, it's one of the coolest things. So they're literally regenerating their ship just by sheer will. And so they're like, oh shit, we got to fucking dip.
So they can just plug right into their ship and just fix it up?
Yes, sir. So literally Picard's like this. He's like, we got to dip. So they start doing a 180 and then driving away. The Borg cube, while regenerating, starts following them. And like, no matter how fast they go, the Borg are still pursuing them. No matter what they launch, if it's proton torpedoes or lasers, they cannot penetrate this thing.
Nice.
Q at that point is just like, dude, you're fucked. And then Picard's like, all right, you win.
We get it.
You're the better man. All right, just send us home. And Q basically, just so that he can gloat, he like snaps his fingers and they're back. Now, here's the aftermath though.
Yeah, I feel like that set some events off.
Yeah. So Guinan literally looks at Picard afterwards and she's like, dude, Q sent some shit in motion right now. Because now that they know where you live, they're going to keep coming. And that's where the whole drama with the Borg comes in. Because the Borg literally seek to assimilate all organic life.
So to make everybody a Borg?
Yeah, essentially. They basically are a hive mind. And they want everyone else to join their mind to become perfection, basically. Mr. Tyler Gardner, do you have any questions for me so far?
No, that was a lot of information, a lot of good stuff. I think we should cap it there. My head is at least pretty full. And then hopefully on the next episode you can keep this train chugging, my friend.
Yes, sir. Any
ending notes for us newbies?
Well, let's just put in perspective of what we covered in these first two episodes. We've gone from the world wars on Earth, all the way up until 2364 around there. So covered a couple hundred years, my guy.
Nice.
So we're looking forward to the end.
So are we done discussing Next Generation, or are we gonna?
I'll probably go into it a little bit more.
Okay.
Just because there's just so much to unpack in there. 7 seasons worth of stuff. So
yeah.
There's a few more events that are pretty important, and I'll go into those next time.
Well, then hopefully everybody will catch us on the next episode of Fandom Spice.